Kayla, thank you so much for
Hi.
coming, and it's so good to see you again.
Nice to see you.
I brought you water just in
Thank
case you need
you.
anything. I know all of our times are very valuable, but what I find is when we have this time together and we kind of go over exactly what you're looking for, I can actually save us so much time on the back end, and I can get you into that home that you are so excited to move into.
Yeah,
Okay?
I'm excited.
Awesome. So today we're just going to kind of go through the process. We're going to go through what you're looking for. We're going to go through what next steps would be for us to get you under contract and to get you to purchase that home. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So the first thing I wanted to do is I just wanted to say, what is it that you think would be that perfect home for you? Be ready. Absolutely, Mackenzie, I'm going to write an offer on it.
Okay, so I'm definitely looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home.
Okay.
Preferably in Holly Springs, Peakaway, or Apex. I definitely want an open floor plan.
Okay. Now let me ask you this. If I can find you a 3-bed, 2-bath, but it might be on the outskirts or just on the town over from Peakaway, Holly Springs, would you be open to that?
I'd be open.
Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful. Because I just asked for permission because sometimes I'm going to give you houses, you're going to be like, but Mackenzie, it only has, 2 bedrooms, but it might have a loft that we could convert into, but the location's amazing. So do I have permission to kind of think outside the box and give you some houses that maybe aren't exactly what you're looking for?
Yeah, absolutely.
Could probably work.
Mhm.
Okay. So I know that we looked at a house that we had met, and we looked at a house that was in the 400s. Is that kind of where you're looking to stay?
Yeah, probably 400 to 450.
400 to 450. Okay, wonderful. And let me ask you this. How are you purchasing this home? Are you going to be paying cash or are you going to be financing it?
I'm already pre-approved.
You're already pre-approved.
Mhm.
Wonderful. You're making this very easy for me because when we talk about what the next steps are, the most important thing for us is to really know what that purchasing power is. That it's incredibly difficult for us to look at houses, right, without knowing what that purchasing power is, because the absolute worst thing I can do is that I can show you a house that perhaps we can't purchase.
Absolutely.
Right? And then we always compare it to that home. So that would definitely be our next steps. If you're looking for Fuquay and Holly Springs, 3-bed, 2-bath, or anything else that's a non-negotiable for you, that if the house does not have this, and I just don't even want to look at it or purchase it.
I definitely want a bigger backyard, so at least 1/3 of an acre.
Okay, wonderful. And may I ask why the big backyard?
I have a dog.
You do? And what's your dog's name?
Salem.
Salem.
Mm-hmm.
I love how your face is just lighting up as you talk about Salem.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful. So the yard is for the dog.
Yes.
So this Great Dane, so I'm going to assume that's kind of an important non-negotiable to have some sort of yard.
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe tells me that are you looking for a single family or a townhome?
Single family.
Single family, because a townhome, I was thinking maybe didn't have the exact yard that you're going to need.
No, I don't.
Right,
think
and
so.
Salem probably would take up the whole
Probably.
downstairs, right? That's super exciting. So the non-negotiable is going to be the yard, and you're definitely looking in that Fuquay Holly Springs, but open to other areas if it's something that I can find.
Yes.
Wonderful. Is there anything that's going to be a deal breaker for you at this home?
I definitely want something that's more updated. I don't want to have to do any fixing up or anything.
Okay. Updated. What does updated mean to you?
Quartz countertops.
Okay.
Preferably a big open kitchen.
Okay. And does the year bother you? Like if you find an updated house, but it's an older home, are you okay with that?
No.
Okay, wonderful. Now let me ask you this, Kayla. Is it going to be the location that's most important to you or the actual home itself when we're making decisions?
Probably the home itself, honestly. I don't have children yet, so I'm not worried about the school districts.
Okay.
Just worried about Salem having a good home.
Okay, wonderful. That is going to be our number one goal. After this, I hope that you have a couple of pictures to show me, so I would love to see a few pictures of Salem.
Course,
Does that sound good? Okay, wonderful. That sounds great. Now, most important, so this is all great information, and I'm going to show you how I can set you up on a search. But Kayla, I want to know, you let me know that this is your first time purchasing a home, right? That you have been renting for the last few years, that you just moved into the area. But what's incredibly important for me is to know, what is it that you're looking for in a real estate agent to help you find this perfect home for you in Salem?
Yeah, I definitely want somebody who's honest with me, is going to get me the best deal for a home, and who's transparent as well.
Okay, so the best deal. Okay, that's awesome. So that is a fantastic segue into, Kayla, what is it that you know about our local market right now?
I know that the interest rates are really high.
Okay.
And the market seems to be cooling off a little bit, I think, in this area.
Okay. Market's cooling off. I just want to write this stuff down. So interest rates really high. So are you comparing those to a certain rate that you have seen or heard before?
Yeah, I know last year they were around 3%, and I think this year they're around 7%.
Right. So that 3%, we actually jokingly wish that all of our clients could kind of erase the last 2 years of real estate in terms of the interest rates. We all know that there was during the pandemic. I don't think that, well, hopefully crossing our fingers, we won't ever see anything like that again. But those interest rates at 3%, I think we don't even know if we'll ever come back again, right?
Yeah.
So what I really know right now is that 6% feels very high to just a couple of years ago, but 6% is actually a very solid number. Inflation's coming down is what I just saw in the local news and also in the national, obviously in the national news. And with the interest rates, they are high, right, compared to what we're used to. Yeah. But before the pandemic, they're actually kind of a status quo with where they've been in a healthier market, if you will. Okay. So all that means for us is that the interest rates are high, but what is most important to you when we're talking about your loan? In terms of, are you talking, is it that monthly payment or to the interest rate that's most important to you?
Definitely the monthly payment.
Okay, great. So what we'll just have to make sure is we might have to get creative, right? And making sure that what that monthly payment is to you that you're most comfortable with, that we can talk about when we talk about lending, is that house is also the 3-2, the 3-bedroom, 2-bath for you in Salem.
Absolutely.
Okay, does that sound good? In terms of the market cooling off, it really, really depends upon the house. And so I just want to let you know that we might look at one house and I'm going to say, you know what, I do think because you want to get that deal, we might be able to get a deal. Okay. What does a deal mean to you? If you're getting a deal like Mackenzie got me a deal, I want to get this house. What does that sound like to you or feel like to you?
I'm hoping that would be like at list price. If there's no bidding wars.
Okay.
On property.
You've heard about bidding wars. Okay. So yes, fortunately and unfortunately for buyers and sellers, there are some houses that are having multiple offers, right? So what we'll do is it's going to be very house specific. So we're going to look at a house and you're going to say, Mackenzie, this is the one, right? And I'm going to say, okay, well, let's talk about the location. Let's talk about the condition.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's talk about the house itself. And so if the condition's amazing, if the location is amazing and it's priced to sell, you're probably not going to be the only buyer who feels that way. Okay. So our strategy, my experience and my advice is going to be very house specific, and it's almost going to be market specific in the fact that I might have you, I might suggest that you offer a certain price on the house in Holly Springs, and it might have a completely different strategy in Fuquay.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So as we're going through each house, we will continue to have those conversations. Okay. So when you see the market's cooling off, perhaps in some areas, the great news is though, for you as a buyer, is we've gone from 0 months of inventory to 1 month. Woohoo! And still a seller's market. But that means that people are putting their house on the market and things are sitting a little bit. So depending upon what that house looks like. Okay. So I just want to make sure that we're very realistic in what the, and what we're going to be able to do and what a deal looks like. Okay. The house has been on the market for a couple of days. We might need to get closer to that list price. If it's been on the market for 30 plus days, then we can kind of have that conversation. Okay. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. Do you have any other questions or any other challenges that you feel that this market's going to have? Just so I can make sure I can ease any of your.
Yeah. Are sellers offering concessions for inspections and things like that?
Great question. So that's all going to depend upon the process, right? There's 2 times I'll be able to negotiate for you, right? It's going to be at the purchase price of the home that we're going to go in and have the seller agree to that. And the second place that I'm going to be able to negotiate for you is during repairs. Okay. I know we went over this a little bit when we looked at that first home in the state of North Carolina. We technically buy house as is, which means the seller doesn't technically have to make any repairs. But what I'll do, again, going back to our conversation before, is that every conversation we have is going to be very specific to that property. Okay. So if you're looking at a house that maybe is a little bit older, but it has a great location, it has exactly the yard that you want, we'll have that discussion ahead of time. Is do we want to negotiate a little bit stronger at the front end or in the back end? Okay. Yeah. Something else that we can also do is we can help with the closing costs. So we can do the purchase price and get some closing costs in there. But again, let's take that one step at a time. I don't want to give you so much information today unless you would like to dig a little bit deeper into that. Okay. But so far, does that sound good? Okay, perfect. Good. So again, it's going to be so house specific, and I don't want to give you this generalized thing that's going to be, I think there's a lot of generalized opinions out there, right? And so we'll just have to take it house by house. Okay. Sound good? All right. So because you said you're a first-time home buyer, I just wanted to go through a couple of documents with you. I wanted to also kind of go over what this process looks like. Okay. And I don't know if you're like me, but I'm incredibly visual, right? Okay. So we have this handy dandy buyer process. Yes, it's a game board. Yes, it looks like Monopoly. right? Some of my clients that have children, I know you shared that you didn't, but maybe you and Salem can do this. They love to put it on the refrigerator and they love to kind of go through the process,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
But it's just a really great visual of kind of knowing what we need to do, making sure that you and I are on the same page during this.
Okay.
One thing I didn't ask you is that timeline. What timeline? I don't think we've discussed, like, when would you like to be in a home?
My lease ends in 3 months.
Okay.
So I'm hoping by the end of my lease.
Okay, wonderful. And do you have the option to break your lease a little bit earlier if you wanted to?
Yes, I do.
Okay, wonderful. So we'll kind of see about 3 months. This is actually the perfect time to start looking for homes. I'm so glad that you and I connected. And because I definitely think that we can get you into that home in the next 3 months. Okay. So you are making my job easier. So thank you, Kayla. You've already gotten pre-approved.
Yes,
So that is the first step. And again, there's 2 reasons for this. The reason number 1 is because it's so empowering to know exactly what you can purchase, right? And exactly what you're comfortable with. And I just want to let you know that maybe you're pre-approved for 400,000, but if we can find that house for 300,000 with that checks off all the boxes, then that's the house we're going to go for. Okay. So just understand the range of homes that I'm going to share with you is going to be at that higher end, perhaps, but also let's find that deal, right?
Yeah,
so just know that my goal is going to be find that perfect home for you, and we just have to make sure that aligns with the price that you're comfortable purchasing at and that monthly payment that you talked about. Okay. And also the big reason for the pre-approval is a seller's not going to accept their offer without knowing that you can purchase the home. Okay. Which makes sense, right? This kind of shows us our proof of funds, proof that you are you're able to purchase this home and very much willing to do it. Okay. So thank you for that. When we get done with this, I'm going to open up my computer and we're going to kind of put in the parameters that you gave to me here. We're going to put it in something called the MLS, and that's just a fancy term for a list of homes that are going to continue to pop up for me, continue to pop up for you. Okay. And they're going to be homes that are going to fit your criteria. The reason why I asked you is, do I have permission to think outside the box? As you might get a couple of homes in there that are just like, this is in a different town, or this isn't exactly the yard that I want. I'm just going to ask that you trust me. And if the home's up there, and sometimes homes are going to pop up and they're going to be like, yeah, this is a no automatically. And that's going to be good too. But the worst thing that I can do is for us to miss a home without thinking outside the box. Absolutely. Does that make sense? Okay. So we're going to find that home. We're going to take, we're going to see as many homes as that we need to find. The one thing I'm going to ask that you do, though, is I'm going to ask that you rate each home that we see. So we're going to look at a home. It's going to check some boxes. And I'm going to say, Caleb, rate this home from 1 to 5. 5 being, I'm going to write an offer today. Okay. So if you give me that 4 or 5, rated a 4 or 5, we're going to stop. You and I are going to have a conversation. Make sure we're on that same page and say, I feel like we're in offer writing territory. Let's dig a little bit deeper. Okay. If you give it a 1, 2, or 3, that's great. I'll keep that in my mind. I'll write down my notes. And if another home comes up and you're like, Mackenzie, I really want to see this house. I'm like, that's totally fine, Kayla. But remember, this was a 2 because of X, Y, and Z. Okay. So we'll just keep that open line of communication so that we don't start to get frustrated. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, awesome. Then you're going to say, this is it. This is the home. I want to make an offer. This is amazing. Okay. So then we're going to get into that offer writing territory, and we're going to write an offer to purchase. All right. I'm not going to go through this 17-page document, but I also like my clients to see the document before we write an offer. This is just a sample copy of it. And the few things that I want to talk to you about, and this is what we're going to need to be thinking about. Okay. Let's go back to the beginning of the conversation where I said my advice, our strategy is going to be different depending upon the home. Okay. So what that means is that the purchase price that we're going to be that we're going to offer on the home, right, depending upon days on market, and then something right here called due diligence. Now, Kayla, I've been doing a lot of talking. Okay, so I want to take a pause here and see if you have any other questions before we move forward, because we're getting ready to get into some meaty stuff here.
So far, I don't, but can you explain what due diligence is?
Yes, that's what we're getting ready to do. Okay. State of North Carolina, we have 2 deposits that we can put down when we offer on a house. Okay. The first one is going to be due diligence money. And what this means is that we are saying, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I absolutely love your house. I would love for you to take your house off the market for 2 to 3 weeks. Allow me, Mrs. Buyer, to do all of my inspections, to do my due diligence, to make sure my lending gets through to purchase your home. So they're going to ask for a non-refundable deposit. Okay. This is only non-refundable if at any time between when you write the offer and you get to closing that you want to back out of the purchase of this home, that you will lose that. It becomes a credit to you at closing when we get to the closing table. But just know this is the number that the seller is really looking at, other than the purchase price, to see how much you want this house and how much skin in the game that you have.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay. And how much is that usually?
Great question. So depending upon the house, so if we're at a house that's been on the market, I'm just going to give you an example, 45 days. There hasn't been very many showings, and we're not in a multiple offer situation. We're looking at about 1% of the purchase price.
Okay.
So for example, if you can do math in your head, $300,000 house, we're looking at $3,000 total. Okay. However, just to make it a little bit more confusing, I will then have a discussion with you about putting some of that deposit in earnest money. Okay. And the reason why that I would suggest us putting some of that money into earnest money, because I can protect this a little bit better. This can be refundable if we decide to not purchase this home during that time that we're doing our due diligence.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay. However, depending upon the house, I may suggest that you put all of that money into the non-refundable deposit, because remember, that's when the seller knows Kayla really wants this house.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
If we're in multiple offers, if we're in a property that a lot of people are falling in love with, this conversation will be a little bit different. Okay. So what I'd like you to start thinking about now is, and you don't have to tell me right now, is do I have the cash that I'm going to need in a certain account that I can get to within 24 hours of writing an offer? Okay. Because what's going to happen is if we write an offer, they accept our offer, then the seller is going to be anticipating that deposit within 24 hours. Okay. So that's just something to think about. So a lot of my clients, and I'm going to ask a question. Do you have checks? I know that's a silly question to ask you right now.
I do have checks.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, because I come from the generation that we do have checks, but I'm learning every day in this market. And in this market, I'm learning that a lot of people don't have checks. So
yes,
just
I do
talking about if you have a local bank, and I know that sounds funny, but it's just the last thing that I can do is ask these questions. We're in the heat of the moment, and so I just want to get that all out now, so we know exactly what we're doing. Okay. So we're going to be looking at the purchase price. Those two deposits, each either going to be broken up into two deposits or one non-refundable deposit, okay? And then the other two things that I would just like you to think about is that due diligence date, and that gives us time to do all of our inspections, right, to make sure that we still feel good about purchasing this home. And that's going to be about 2 to 3 weeks, okay, on there, and then also the closing date. So we can close with some of our lenders as early as 14 to 21 days.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Wow.
So we'll talk about that. Typically, it's about 30 days to be in a competitive offer. Seller's going to love to be able to close within 30 days. So again, we'll talk about that. But just in your mind, today is June, I think 22nd, right? So just if we go looking at houses this weekend, which I know that we have set to do, that we could find a house this weekend. And so you could be in as early as the middle to the end of July.
Oh, wow.
If you would want to do that. Okay. And if not, so just be thinking about that. So it's going to be the purchase price, what deposit we feel comfortable putting down, and also when you would like to close. Okay. So that's going to be the big thing. There's a ton of other stuff in here that you can look through. If you get a little bit tired and you're having trouble falling asleep, I highly recommend you look at this. Okay. Any questions about the offer to purchase?
No.
Okay, wonderful. And then here, I'm just going to leave with you this after we get under contract, then it's going to be a lot of the lending stuff, right? That you and your lender will be talking with, and also the inspections and the appraisal, which we'll talk about when we get to that point. Okay. What I like to do is each time we go to a house is we just kind of talk about different things, different scenarios, depending upon the house, and drop some nuggets that way. Okay. Does that sound good? Fantastic. The last thing that I wanted to talk to you about was then, how do we get into these homes? How do we start looking at them? How do we find that home for Salem and for you, and to get you right into by the end of the summer? And this is something that we call the buyer agency agreement. It's basically a loyalty agreement. This is your protection. This protects you from anything that you talk to me about, from your lending to your finances to what you love about this home. Okay. So this allows us to have a working relationship. It allows us to work together. It allows me to put you up on this search, to speak to the sellers on your behalf, to negotiate on your behalf, and to get you under contract. Okay. So again, I know that I shared this with you after the first time that we met, but I just want to go over some bullet points. At any time, if you want me to go more in depth, please let me know. But most of my clients appreciate just going over the bullet points. Okay. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, wonderful. Any questions about anything else that I've covered before we get into this last part of our presentation?
So far, no.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right. So this agreement's going to be between you and the firm, right? I'm the representative of that firm, EXP. And this basically says that I can show you a house anywhere in the MLS. Okay. So I'm going to set you up on that search that we talked about. But where do you like to look for homes, Kayla?
Fuquay and Holly Springs.
Right, but where do you find those homes?
Oh, where do I? Oh, on Zillow.
On Zillow, I know. Everybody does. I love to look on Zillow, and I'm a real estate agent, right? So just know that The difference between the MLS is that we get the ones that are just going on the market. We almost get first dibs on homes, right?
Okay.
However, that does not mean that a house is, you're not going to be scrolling through. So please scroll through. And if a house comes up on Zillow that did not come up on our search, send it to me right away.
Okay.
I can show you any house. It's just not the houses that I'm sending to you, but I'm licensed in the entire state of North Carolina. So if you wanted to move to the beach, I'd probably move with you, but I could show you a house at the beach as well. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
So I can show you a house anyway. It looks like that we're looking for resale houses, not new construction, but that might not be out of the question. So I like us to start a 6-month agreement, right? That gives us time again to look at houses, not feel rushed, get you on a contract and get you to the closing table.
Okay.
If we want to start looking at some new construction, I might push this out to a year, only because depending upon where it is in the build, it might take 6, 9 to 12 months to build. Okay. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Awesome. Compensation of my firm is actually, I'm compensated by the seller's firm. It could be anywhere up to 3%, but this is, like I said, but I'm compensated by the seller's firm, not by you. I will let you know that if the firm is compensating anywhere lower than 2.4%, before we look at that home, I'm going to let you know, just say I want to let you know the seller's firm is offering this. And you and I would have a discussion about maybe perhaps where we can meet in the middle and still be able to compensate the firm what my firm would be expecting, right? And then also make sure that you feel comfortable with that, right?
Okay.
That doesn't happen often, but I just like to bring it up at the beginning.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wonderful. Sorry, sticky papers. I just want to let you know that my firm's duties right here is to give you the absolute highest standard and level of care. Okay, again, this is your protection clause. This lets you know that I'm going to be incredibly confidential. I'm going to be incredibly professional, right? My job is to find a home for you, and I will be doing that every single day until we do that. And I would just love for you to have that same relationship with me, right?
Okay.
I'm going to communicate with you. You're going to communicate with me at any time. If you do not feel like that I am providing with the service that you're expecting or that I'm sharing with you today, give me a call. Okay. The one thing about this this document is that you and I can terminate it at any time. All right.
Okay.
You might decide that I don't want to buy a house right now, and that's okay. All right. You might decide again that for some reason I'm not meeting the level of service that you're expecting, and we'll have that conversation. Or I just might be like, you know what, Kayla, I don't think you and I are on the same page, and I might just say I think that we should go our separate ways. Don't think that's going to happen at all, but I do think it's important for you to understand, because I know that I'm asking you to sign a document for us to be in a relationship together. So I think it's important for you to know that there is a way for us to get out of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that makes people feel a little bit better about that. Any other professional advice? I do like to let you know. I know just enough about lending. I know just enough about taxes. I know just enough about real estate law, if you will. I will not be giving you any advice.
Okay.
What I'm really good about is giving you real estate advice. Okay. So if you have any questions about attorney, taxes, anything else, I will certainly give you some of the vendors, but just know I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm just not allowed to share any of that information with you. Okay.
Yeah.
And do anything with that. And any offer that we do is completely and totally confidential. The only thing that I will be sharing with the seller and the listing agent is your name, because that will be the name that's going to be on the offer to purchase. Right. Right here, we have a $395 transaction fee that's paid at closing by you to my firm.
Okay.
This allows us to cross all of our T's, dot all of our I's. Also, in the state of North Carolina, you may not know that we hold all of our documentation for 3 years. So this just ensures that we're going to keep it safe. We're going to be able to reach out to any information anytime. It could be 2 years from now, Mackenzie, I'm doing my taxes. Do you have some information for me? And I'll be able to pick it up really quickly. Okay.
Okay.
And this will be paid at closing by the buyer. Okay. By you.
Okay.
So, any questions?
So my due diligence will pretty much cover this, along with some of my cash to close.
Great question. So your due diligence will be something separate for the offer to purchase, right? To be able to get under contract and get from contract to close, going through all the whole transaction process, that will be an additional fee.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Great. I'm so glad that you asked that. We talked about dual agency when we first met with working with real estate. It just, this again is to reiterate, and again, if you would like me to go more in depth, let me know. But this just reminds us that we could be looking at a home that an agent from my firm is representing the seller and or somebody on my team.
Okay.
Right. However, immediately we would go into something called designated agency. I'm designated your buyer's agent. The other agent is going to be representing the seller. At no time will I be representing the buyer and the seller.
Okay.
Do you remember that we talked about that?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Do you have any other questions about that at this point?
No, I don't.
Okay, fantastic. And so that just means that we'll sign here that yes, dual agency. we've got like 1,500 agents just in the Triangle in our firms. I would hate for us to not be able to look at one of their homes. So I'll just say, yes, we can look at homes that are represented by somebody in my firm. However, it will be designated. Okay. So that's what that part's going to be. And we'll be able to do that. And I think this is the termination part that I already talked about. I don't want to, belabor that, but that's something that we can talk about. This sounds silly, but I want to let you know as you're going to walk into a house, you and I did it the first one, you're like, oh my gosh, this house is great. You don't want the sellers to know that, right? So a lot of homes this day and age are going to have videos. They're not supposed to by law to listen to our conversations, but I can't promise you that they aren't, okay? So let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly in the driveway, not at the front door or in the house, okay? Because we will lose some negotiation power. I don't want us to do that. I just want to let you know there is unfortunately wire fraud in America. I'm sure you've heard about the stories. My firm will never send you an email from my email or anything from call team about wiring money. If at any time you ever get an email from me or from my team, please call me immediately. It will only come from the attorney. I don't want to scare you, but I also want you to be very informed. Does that make sense? All right. And this last page here is going to be your full legal name that's going to be on that offer to purchase when we buy that first home. And just make sure, confirm that I have the right cell number and the right email. And then I've signed it here too that we're going to be working together. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Do you have any questions about the buyer agency agreement?
Is there any fee for terminating our contract?
Great question. There is no fee for terminating. I'm going to hope that that's not going to happen, and I'm going to work to my best of my ability. But no, if you and I at any time, like I said, decide that this is not going to work for us, we'll terminate, we'll shake hands, and I will wish you all the best. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you'll see here that I have initialed each page here. So next to my initial, if you go initial that, while you're initialing that, I'm going to open up my computer and I'm going to get you set up on that search so I can show you some houses and we can set up a game plan for Saturday. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Here you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ta-da! Okay. Feedback.